On today's episode of Pathmark Presents, I have a very special guest with me joining today. Please welcome Ben, who is the Director of Digital Marketing for OMMAX. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to have you here, learn more about who you are, what you've done in your career, and ultimately see where the conversation goes. So thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our honor. So now, my first question is, because all of our audience is super excited to learn about what you are doing within your company, give
Mhm.
us an insight. What is OMMAX all about?
Hi, yeah, so my name's Ben Alaimo. I'm Director of Digital Marketing at OMMAX, a digital consultancy which specializes in value creation using digital strategy. So this covers everything from digital transformation to digital go-to-market, software development, and software integration. Prior to OMMAX, I was a Director of Digital Marketing for around 5 years at a performance marketing agency and consultancy. So there, work with a number of major brands, generally focused on the fintech sector, cybersecurity, and SaaS. So that's where a lot of my expertise lies. I worked a lot with venture-backed startups, helping to scale their businesses when they'd recently had funding. And then before that, I was a project manager at Microsoft. I've also got quite a bit of experience in AI and artificial intelligence, and I was involved in the industry before it was as excitable and hype-driven as it is now. So either way, I'm looking forward to any questions that you may ask, and it's great to be here.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing. So now my next question is, since I know that this company is growing, especially within the AI realm today, in your expert opinion, what companies do you think are going to win in the AI space today? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, with artificial intelligence as an industry as a whole, obviously we're going through a hype cycle at this point in time where we've seen it in the media. We've had the retail app ChatGPT really explode onto the scene. I think if we take a step back and look that large language models, LLMs, they're effectively on the way to becoming commoditized. So we've got OpenAI's GPT models, they've got GPT-4, we've got Meta's Llama models, we've got, which has been released publicly as open source, we've got Amazon's Titan models. So all these companies developing these large language models, these are commoditized. And that means for a company to win in this space, and this is also based upon information when I spoke to venture capitalists, they need to think about, okay, what first party unique data do they have? And how can they actually leverage that data in order to create a strong value proposition for their customers, as opposed to creating a Me Too solution, which you will see a lot on the market. So I think there will be a period of consolidation in the industry where we'll go through these technologies and these, I'd say, easy to create tools. And then there will be a consolidation. I think the real winners long term will be the companies that can leverage their unique data, create custom machine learning models, create custom chatbots, custom integrations. And I think those will be the winners.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. So since you discussed on the topic or touched on it of LLMs, so then
Mm.
what do you think AI will disrupt in SEO? Do you think it will disrupt? If so, how? Can you elaborate on this for us?
Well, the relationship between AI and SEO is very interesting. So Google pioneered the transformer model, which is used in GPT. It's used in OpenAI. They pioneered it, but they didn't release it. And the reason they didn't release it was because not because they didn't have the technology, it was because of more reputational risk. They didn't want to put out a large language model onto the scene and have issues with that potentially damaging their brand. Also, it costs more to service an AI query than it does to service a traditional search query currently on Google. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow. I did not know. That's interesting.
yeah. So not many people know this. It's quite sort of unique inside information, but basically for Google to really push into AI, they have to effectively cannibalize their own business model. And that's obviously going to be challenging for them to do. They've only started being motivated to do that now after OpenAI's huge success. And OpenAI had a $10 billion investment from Microsoft, then integrated into Bing. So it's clear there's a true competition now on the scene between Microsoft and Google. But overall, with AI and SEO, I think it will gradually become more and more seamlessly integrated together. And I also think some of the search traffic will move away from your traditional Google search and more into the platforms. So as opposed to just searching on Google, a person searches on ChatGPT, on Bard, and then that will then link to the various websites and to the various links and data that the person wants. So there's a whole transformation going on right now. And I think the companies that don't embrace that and lean into that, they will be left behind because competitors and especially startups will embrace those trends.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with where the realm is going with AI and seeing are the huge corporations such as Microsoft and Google,
Mhm.
for startups or for anyone who's interested in creating a company, especially incorporating AI, where do you think they should start, or where would you suggest for them to begin to adopt AI into their current products or their solutions, and how should they go about it? What are your thoughts on this matter?
Great question. Well, firstly, I spoke to a lot of CEOs. I spoke to a lot of venture-backed startup CEOs and large organizational CEOs, and they all say the same thing. They want to adopt AI. They want to use AI to improve their business, but they just don't know where to start. So I think it actually starts by creating what I like to call an AI strategy. And it starts with your business goals, your business KPIs. And then the mindset of a business leader needs to be, okay, AI is a tool, it's a technology. How can we leverage that to improve our business and drive impact on the KPIs we care about? So that's the key point. It's not just saying, okay, let's integrate AI into a random part of the business. It's saying, okay, we want to drive revenue growth. How can we leverage AI to do that? We want to lower costs. How can we leverage AI to do that? And this could be in content marketing, from creating a AI powered content strategy, reducing the amount of time it takes to create content, or it could be creating a chatbot for customer service, which reduces the overhead on a customer service company. So there's many, many different ways, but it all starts with the KPIs of the business, the AI strategy, and then mapping to that and looking at the various tools. It can also help to either hire an external consultant or consult with a somebody internally who's going to be your AI expert, your head of AI, your head of data science, which you see a lot of people being hired in that role. And their go-to role is to really be your trusted advisor and say, okay, out of all the hundreds of thousands of tools from all the different vendors, this is what we think works because it's likely to drive these results for your business. So I think that's a great place to start for business leaders.
Amazing. Sweet. Thanks for sharing. And especially too with elaborating on, where to start, so because especially with, AI, it's been really, really daunting and very intimidating for so many marketers and for a lot of companies on how do they break into this, but
Mm-hmm.
also with how can they maximize their efforts without losing any profit. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing those tips and overall. So now I'm quite curious, since you are the expert within this realm, what are your thoughts on Meta's new social networking threads?
Okay. So Threads is definitely an interesting platform. I first heard about this. It was actually early 2023 before it was released. So I was actually listening to a podcast, surprisingly, and it was Mark Zuckerberg was being interviewed by, I believe, Lex Friedman, and he mentioned a text-based social media platform that was in development. And he discussed that as basically, oh, it's just one of our projects we're working on. He didn't say it was literally about to be released, which of course it was. It's basically dubbed as a Twitter equivalent. The interesting point with it is Meta's realized from a monetization perspective that text-based platforms have the highest monetization ability over generally any other type of platform. So Mark Zuckerberg knows this. He knows moving over to Reels and Shorts is great to generate engagement, but actually the ad revenues derive from text-based platforms because you can put an ad after every tweet or every post that you'd have on Threads. So there's a lot of reasons he's done it. In terms of obviously the speed of growth for the platform, I believe it has now become the fastest growing platform ever in history. I think I have this. I might have the stats here. So 5 days, the platform reached 100 million users. It took Twitter 5 years to reach the equivalent figure. And then today, Twitter has around 350 million users. So you can see the rapid growth. There's a study by Evercore, and that says it should generate Meta around $8 billion in revenue over the next 2 years. So there's a lot of momentum behind it. So that's the positives. And they grew the platform, according to the head of Instagram, through actually an influencer marketing strategy. So they had contacted them, all the big influencers, from chefs like Gordon Ramsay to soccer legends to football stars, etc. They contacted them and said, okay, can you come on the platform to get that initial boost of engagement? And then, of course, they've got gamification with a referral, and you log in through Instagram, etc. The challenge the platform, I believe, is going to face is retention. So it's very easy if you've got a platform with 2 billion users to drive people to a new platform, but to getting people to continue using it, I think that's going to be really, really challenging, because even myself, I went onto it for research, and I thought, okay, I've got Threads, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. There's so many platforms now for a consumer to choose from. And so getting people to say, okay, I'm going to just use Threads and do posts, and I have to start with a low number of followers, or they're just going to stick with Instagram. Or if they are that type of person, they want to share more text-based content, then they'd go on Twitter, now called X. So I think that'll be the real challenge for Zuck. So it's either going to be a nice revenue earner for Meta, or it could actually be, okay, this is one of the biggest flops in history. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was quite curious because especially with, your background and how you uh dived into, these platforms, and with your background, I was curious as to know what your thoughts are would be on this new application that they created. So now, speaking of social media platforms, and what other platforms should brands be considering investing into? Threads, as we just talked about, it could either be a success or it could be a flop. But
Yeah.
where would you suggest for companies to start?
Well, yeah, great question again. I would say if you look at where the ad dollars are being spent, a couple of years ago, 80% of ad dollars were going on Meta and Google. Go back a decade, Meta was considered to be a joke. Everybody was investing into Google. So looking forward now, the landscape's changed. There has been a rise in a lot of alternative social media platforms. So we've got TikTok, we've got Twitter, now X, we will have Threads soon. I think they're going to launch monetization very soon. So we've got all these platforms. We've got Reddit, we've got Pinterest. And I think you could be a CMO, you could be a business leader, a marketing manager. I think what you need to do is carve out a experimental budget. And with that budget, what you're trying to do is actually say, okay, we're going to test some of these platforms. And what you're looking for is a high ROAS, a high return on ad spend, a high ROI, a low cost per click. And if you find that on a platform with a small budget, it's not going to affect the top line results of the business, then you can then gradually allocate more and more budget. So that's what I would say is the best strategy to do. It does require a mindset shift and a cultural shift. So a lot of traditional businesses, they're just focusing pure on lead gen. And if a suggestion of an alternative platform comes up, they see it as a risk. But I actually think the biggest risk is not taking any risk. So not trying these new platforms, not experimenting. And so there's a lot of platforms, and it starts with obviously defining your ideal customer persona and then saying, okay, where are those people? Are they on Pinterest? Are they on TikTok? If they're not, that's fine, but likely they are. So you should really be exploring those places.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that with us. So now my next question is, within the realm of AI and where marketing is going and where the industry is pivoting, how do you stay up to date without feeling so overwhelmed? What are things that have worked for you that help not feeling overwhelmed with the amount of content that there is nowadays?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think exactly your point. The challenge now is there's so much content out there. There's so much noise, and the real winners will be the people that can filter that signal from the noise. And so that helps with, I think, identifying people who provide value, thought leaders in the industry, specific podcasts, specific content where it's actually valuable and it's not just sensationalism saying AI is going to be a Terminator scenario and just, do you mean take everyone out? Which is, there is a small chance of that, but it's still not, it shouldn't be the main topic of conversation when there's a lot of innovation going around, I think. So I think, yeah, identifying those people, there's people like that on LinkedIn, obviously podcasts, etc. And then also doing your own independent research. So I come from an investing background actually originally, and a key part of that is you're looking at the consensus and you're saying, okay, I'm going to do independent analysis and then I'm going to look at what the consensus said, but I'm not going to be overly influenced, because as human beings, we're evolutionarily designed to copy others and follow others and basically be influenced by others in terms of their thought processes. Sometimes that's positive. So originally it's designed for safety. So we move together and you see a flock of pigeons, they all fly together. But in a scenario like the stock market, it causes madness, it causes panic selling, panic buying. So I think, yeah, doing your own independent analysis, you can never beat that.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think it's really great advice as well as like, especially with following the companies that will filter out the noise that we're seeing nowadays, because
Mhm.
it can be really overwhelming, especially, if you're
Yeah,
coming into a new industry and you're figuring out where to pivot. You have to really be diligent on how you break down this content for yourself
exactly.
and how you,
100%.
yeah,
100%. And mainstream news these days is really just, it's about getting eyeballs, getting attention. And I think that is what's caused the rise of podcasts, alternative media, because people realize actually, if I go on mainstream news, it's just negative, it's a hype cycle, and it's not actually providing value. And I think that's what's caused the rise in podcasts and alternative media.
yeah, no, I agree completely. So now we're at the end of our interview today. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on Pathbunk Presents. But I also want to give you the last word. If anyone were to forget about everything we've talked about in this interview today, what is the one thing that you want them to remember overall?
Filter the signal from the noise.
What the signal from the noise? Yeah, absolutely. Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast. I really loved learning more about AI, where the realm is going, how it could disrupt SEO and how so, and just all the great insights you have within the industry. So thank you again for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, it was great to be here, and great questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for all of our listeners out there, check us out next week.